Hello and welcome back to another Bible Byte. Today we're going to take a look at Nehemiah's life and how his silence and his speech were a part of God's solution to the pain and turmoil that the Israelites were facing in their day. I'm Russell Baker. This is the Great Commission Alliance Media Channel. Thanks for tuning in. So let's go ahead and dive on into the passage. We're in Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 1 through 8. In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was before him, I took up wine and gave it to the king. Now I had not been sad in his presence. And the king said to me, "Why is your face sad, seeing you are not sick? This is nothing but sadness of the heart." Then I was very much afraid. I said to the king, "Let the king live forever. Why should not my face be sad? When the city, the place of my father's graves, lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire." And the king said to me, "What are you requesting?" So I prayed to the God of heaven, and I said to the king, "If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in your sight, that you send me to Judah, to the city of my father's graves, that I may rebuild it." And the king said to me, the queen sitting beside him, "How long will you be gone, and when will you return?" So it pleased the king to send me when I had given him a time. And I said to the king, "If it pleases the king, let letters be given me to the governors of the province beyond the river, that they may let me pass through until I come to Judah. And a letter to Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber to make beams for the gates of the fortress of the temple, and for the wall of the city, and for the house that I shall occupy." And the king granted me what I asked, for the good hand of my God was upon me. So, we see also in Ecclesiastes 3:7 that there is a time to keep silent and a time to speak. And Nehemiah does both of these. Opening up this passage, we see that Nehemiah had not been sad in the presence of the king. But in the midst of this silence, Nehemiah was bringing his request before God continually day and night, and he did this for 4 months, wrestling in prayer and through fasting before God about the injustice that was seen in the midst of Jerusalem. But we also see that Nehemiah spoke up, and Nehemiah, when asked about the sadness that he was facing in his heart, he was honest and humble in his response. And this ultimately God used in the midst of bringing about his solution. We see that the solution that God was bringing about, God was present in the midst of this. God was working in the midst of Nehemiah's humility and in the midst of his silence in King Artaxerxes' heart. It's the king who brings up these questions, and it's the king who's asking Nehemiah what's going on in his heart. And so it's like the king has already basically bought in to whatever Nehemiah is going to ask, but it's because God has done that work beforehand. And so we have to remember that in the midst of everything that's going on today, God is present with us. And when we're speaking up to him, he's faithful to, in the midst of our silence, provide those opportunities for us to speak up about the injustices. In the midst of this, I'm also reminded of James chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." So there is wisdom in staying silent for a time with men, but being very verbal in our requests with God, speaking up to him and trusting that he is the one that's going to bring about righteousness in the world around us. And so when we're patiently waiting on God, we know that we will not be dismayed when he works on our behalf and provides those opportunities for us to speak up to the injustices around us. We have this picture also from Jesus in the Beatitudes in Matthew 5, verse 6. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. So if you're facing a particular turmoil or wondering whether it's your time to speak up right now or your time to wait, just trust in the Lord, seek Him, bring your requests to Him, and trust Him for the right opportunity to speak up in your world around you. And when that opportunity arises, trust Him for the words to say, like Nehemiah did, and watch Him work, so that when we are at the end of our story, we can look back and see and answer in the same way that Nehemiah did. For the good hand of my God was upon me. To God ultimately be the glory. Now, if you also like this content, please be sure to like down below, subscribe to the channel, whichever way that is, and check out some of the other content on this channel as well. If you missed it, Brandon Cox did an excellent job with Nehemiah 1. Check out his video. It'll be linked in the end slate. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.